There's a quiet kind of power that never makes headlines. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand. It doesn't even try to win. It simply acts, in the smallest of ways, at the most ordinary of moments. A smile offered to someone lost in their own storm. A hand that picks up what others dropped. A word spoken gently, when anger would have been easier. In a world obsessed with being seen, kindness works in the shadows. It has no audience, no applause, and no trending hashtag. And yet, it moves everything. Like gravity, invisible, constant, unstoppable. We often think strength means dominance or power or control. But what if true strength is measured in tenderness? What if the most radical act left to us is simply to be kind? Because kindness isn't weakness. It's the quiet defiance of a heart that refuses to harden. It's saying, I will not let the world make me cruel. And the most beautiful truth is this: kindness is always possible, even when everything else feels impossible. So what happens when we decide to live that way, to be kind, not because it's easy, but because it's who we choose to be? We live in a world that praises kindness, but rewards cruelty. It's strange, isn't it? The same society that preaches compassion also builds systems that punish vulnerability. We post quotes about empathy on glowing screens, then scroll past the suffering of others. We say, be kind, yet our timelines thrive on outrage, mockery, and comparison. In the digital age, kindness has become a slogan, a brandable virtue, easily worn and quickly forgotten. We donate once, share a hashtag, and move on, relieved that we've done enough. But genuine kindness doesn't seek attention. It asks for something deeper. It asks for presence, for courage, for seeing another person not as an obstacle, but as a mirror. In cities packed with millions, loneliness grows louder. We sit side by side in cafes, each lost behind a screen. We talk about community while living in isolation. We crave understanding, yet fear opening our hearts, because to care is to risk being hurt. The paradox is this: we're connected more than ever, but compassion feels rarer than before. We confuse politeness with kindness, tolerance with love. We hide behind irony and humor to protect our softest parts, pretending indifference is wisdom. But indifference doesn't make us wise. It just makes us smaller. Somewhere, we forgot that kindness isn't about being nice. It's about being real, even when that reality is uncomfortable. It's about listening when there's nothing to gain. It's about choosing gentleness in a culture addicted to dominance. Kindness is rebellion in an age of cynicism. It's a radical act of faith, to believe that one human heart still matters in a world that constantly breaks them. To be kind is to say, I see you. I choose not to add to your burden. And yet we hesitate. We wonder if kindness will be misunderstood, mistaken for weakness, or worse, exploited. So we guard ourselves. We hold our warmth back, as if saving it for someone more deserving. But the truth is, everyone is fighting a battle we can't see. And every time we withhold kindness, the world grows a little colder. Still, the paradox persists. The more the world hardens, the more kindness is needed, and the rarer it becomes. But perhaps that's what makes it sacred. Because real kindness doesn't ask for the right conditions. It doesn't wait for perfect timing. It happens precisely when it's least convenient. Maybe the question isn't why we should be kind. Maybe it's what happens to us when we're not. And if kindness is always possible, what stops us from offering it? Kindness is often mistaken for something simple, a polite gesture, a quiet virtue, a background note in the great symphony of life. But true kindness isn't decoration. It's a force, subtle, yes, but transformative. It changes the air in a room, the rhythm of a day, the direction of a life. When we look closely, kindness is not about morality. It's about awareness. It begins the moment we see, truly see, another human being. Not their status, not their opinion, not their mistake, but their shared humanness. This seeing, this awareness, requires stillness inside us, because to be kind, we must first pause. The modern world teaches us to react, to defend, to rush. But kindness asks for the opposite, a slowing down, a deliberate noticing, a breath between thought and action. Think about the last time someone was kind to you, unexpectedly. Maybe it was a stranger holding the door, a friend calling at the right moment, or a smile when you felt invisible. You didn't remember their clothes or voice or face. You remembered how it felt, that sudden reminder that you still mattered. Kindness does that. It tells the soul, you are not alone. There's a Tibetan saying, be kind whenever possible. It is always possible. It sounds simple, almost naive, but hidden in that line is a profound truth, that kindness is not dependent on circumstance. It's a choice of consciousness. You can be exhausted, betrayed, heartbroken, and still choose to soften. You can be right and still choose to be gentle. You can be unseen and still choose to give. Kindness is not weakness. Weakness is when the world dictates your reactions. Strength is when you choose your response, even when your ego begs you not to. That's why the strongest people are often the kindest. They've walked through storms, tasted cruelty, and still refuse to return it. Their kindness isn't innocence, it's wisdom. It's knowing how dark the world can be, and choosing to light a candle anyway. Every act of kindness, however small, is an act of defiance against entropy, against the slow decay of empathy that modern life encourages. To be kind is to say, I will not participate in the unmaking of the world. But here's the paradox inside the paradox. Kindness isn't only for others, it's medicine for ourselves. When we choose kindness, something inside unclenches. The weight we carry, of judgment, of resentment, of fear, begins to dissolve. Because to be kind, we must step out of the story where we are the center. We must recognize that everyone carries their own invisible script of struggle. In that recognition, something shifts. We stop competing, comparing, and defending. We begin to listen. And in listening, we reconnect, not just with others, but with ourselves. Kindness, then, is awareness turned outward. It's mindfulness made visible. It's the spiritual practice of being human. The Dalai Lama once said that kindness is his only religion. He didn't mean rituals or doctrine. He meant a way of existing that honors the sacred in each encounter. Every moment becomes a chance to bless rather than to wound. Every person becomes a teacher, a mirror, a reminder. And yet, the greatest kindness may be the one we forget most easily, the kindness we owe ourselves. We speak to ourselves in ways we'd never speak to a friend. We deny rest, punish mistakes, and hide our grief behind productivity. But a weary heart cannot pour compassion into the world. To be kind to others, we must first tend to the inner soil. Self-kindness is not indulgence, it's alignment. It's recognizing that your own peace nourishes others more than your exhaustion ever could. When you forgive yourself, you model forgiveness. When you rest, you give others permission to breathe. When you love without condition, you invite others to do the same. So perhaps the real question is not, how can I be kind? But what part of me resists kindness? Is it fear of being taken advantage of? Is it pride, the ego's illusion of superiority? Or is it pain, the part of us that has forgotten softness because softness once led to hurt? Kindness doesn't erase boundaries. It defines them through love, not fear. It doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It means saying yes to humanity, even when you must say no to a person. It's the quiet art of holding compassion without losing clarity. Imagine if every person practiced this, just once a day. A pause before the harsh reply, a willingness to understand before judging, a moment to breathe before reacting. The ripple effect would be immeasurable, because every act of kindness expands the field of what's possible. It makes the world a little less random, a little more humane. And in that expanding field, others find the courage to do the same. Kindness is contagious, not through words, but through presence. It's not taught, it's felt. And the more we give, the more it multiplies. When kindness becomes our default, something extraordinary happens. We stop living as isolated egos and begin living as one breathing organism. A single heart with billions of beats. And maybe that's what it means to be alive. Not to conquer, but to care. Because, in the end, kindness is not what we do. It's what we are when everything else falls away. Once, in a small mountain village, there lived an old man named Tenzin. He was known by everyone, not for his wealth, not for his wisdom, but for his kindness. He walked slowly, always carrying a basket of apples that he gave to anyone who passed. Children loved him. Strangers trusted him. Even the dogs followed him home. One winter, the village was hit by a terrible storm. The roads closed, food ran short, and tempers grew thin. Neighbors began to turn inward, hoarding what little they had. The air grew cold not just from the snow, but from the silence between hearts. One evening, Tenzin was seen walking through the blizzard, his old coat flapping in the wind. He carried that same basket, though there were no apples inside. Only a few small loaves of bread he'd baked from his last handful of flour. He went from house to house, knocking on doors. Some welcomed him in, others told him to go home. But he just smiled and said, "I will, when everyone has eaten." By the third night, people began to notice. The bread he gave seemed to stretch further than it should have. A single loaf fed a family, and still there was more. Children said it was magic, the adults said it was coincidence. Tenzin only said, kindness multiplies in ways we cannot count. Days later the storm passed. The sun broke through, glinting off the melting snow. When villagers went to thank him, they found his small hut empty. On his table, a note read, "Feed each other. That is how I live on." No one saw Tenzin again. Some said he went deeper into the mountains. Others believed he became part of the wind that warmed the valley after every storm. Years passed, and the village changed. New houses, new people, new ways of living. But one tradition never faded: the basket day. Every winter, when the first snow fell, each home prepared a small basket of food to share. No one knew exactly how it started, but everyone agreed. It felt like the mountain itself was breathing again. And so the story of Tenzin became less about a man and more about a reminder that kindness doesn't die. It echoes. It becomes part of the air that others breathe, the warmth that finds us when we least expect it. Sometimes, when the wind blows gently through the valley, the villagers still say, "Listen, that's Tenzin," reminding us that love is not meant to be stored. And maybe that's the whole secret. Kindness doesn't wait for comfort. It begins exactly where we think we have nothing left to give. Because what we give away never truly leaves us. It circles back, quiet and golden, in the lives it touched. Tenzin's story lives because someone once chose to be kind when it was hardest. And from that choice, 1,000 small kindnesses were born. A loaf shared. A smile offered. A stranger seen, ripples moving outward, until even the storm could not erase them. Perhaps we're all carrying a basket, though most of us forget it's there. The question is, what will we fill it with? There comes a moment in every life when kindness is no longer an idea. It's a choice that costs something. It's the moment you're hurt and you still choose to stay soft. It's the moment you have every reason to turn away, and yet you don't. That's when kindness reveals its true power. Not when it's easy, but when it demands courage. Maybe you felt it, the trembling moment before forgiveness. Your heart clenched, your mind replaying every wound, and yet something within whispers, "Let go." Not because they deserve it, but because you do. That's what kindness does. It frees you first. We often think kindness is a gift we give to others. But in truth, it's the bridge that returns us to ourselves. It dissolves bitterness, softens the past, and makes space for life to flow again. When we are kind, the world outside may not change, but the world within always does. There's a quiet strength in refusing to match the world's anger with more anger, a grace in responding to cruelty with dignity. And in those moments, when you could harden but don't, that's the measure of your soul. Every great transformation in history began with such moments. A stranger helped another across a border. A nurse stayed a little longer by a patient's bed. A teacher believed in a child no one else noticed. These acts didn't make the news, but they made humanity possible. Kindness is not a strategy. It's a state of being, the natural language of an awakened heart. It says, "Even in this chaos, I will not forget my humanity." And here's the truth. Life will test this vow. You will meet people who take advantage of it. You will face moments when your kindness is met with silence or suspicion. You'll wonder if it's worth it. But remember, a flower doesn't bloom because it's guaranteed to be admired. It blooms because that's what it was born to do. The world doesn't need more brilliance. It needs more warmth, It doesn't need more opinions. It needs more listening. And you have that power every single day. In your tone, your eyes, your choices, your pauses. Each small kindness is a thread, and together they weave the invisible fabric of peace. Maybe the meaning of life was never about what we achieve, but how gently we hold what we've been given. How we treat the people who cross our path, even for a moment. How we choose to respond when no one is watching. And if, someday, the sum of your life is measured not in titles or possessions, but in the lives you touched, that will be enough. Because in the end, kindness is not about changing the world. It's about refusing to let the world change you. And maybe, just maybe, that's where real strength begins. In the end, kindness is not a grand philosophy. It's a way of moving through the world, softly, attentively, awake. It's in the pauses between words, the gentleness in your tone, the patience in your eyes. You don't need power to be kind. You don't need approval or permission, or proof that it matters. Every small act, unseen, uncelebrated, becomes part of an unseen network of healing that holds this world together. When you choose kindness, you become a quiet revolution. You become the reason someone believes in goodness again. You become the calm inside the storm. So pause for a moment. Think of one person, just one, who might need your softness today. A friend, a stranger, maybe even yourself. Then offer it, not because they've earned it, but because you can. The heart is a mirror. Whatever you give, returns. Kindness offered outward always circles back inward. And one day, when you need it most, it will find its way back to you, disguised as grace, as peace, as light. You don't need to change the world today. Just make one corner of it gentler, and that will be enough. Because, as the Dalai Lama reminds us, be kind whenever possible. It is always possible. Kindness is not an act of weakness. It is the soul remembering what it truly is.